Now, the very first thing that was reported,
It's
Sheriff
like right
Liston,
after we do these podcasts, we always hear something about it, or like right before we do them.
on July 14th, 1988, Lee County Sheriff's Office got a report of a car that had been damaged overnight while parked at a home in the area of Browntown outside of Bishopville.
Okay.
Which is, and Browntown is on the edges of the Scape Ore Swamp. Now, the car had tooth marks and scratches with hair and muddy fingerprints left behind. Sheriff Liston Truesdale said this is the first time that he had seen anything to suggest that things weren't normal in the Scape Ore Swamp.
Right.
So, a few days later, 17-year-old Christopher Davis reported to the sheriff that his car was damaged by a creature he described as green, wet-like, about 7 feet tall, with 3 fingers, red eyes, skin like a lizard, and he saw it briefly, apparently. He was driving home. He worked at a fast food restaurant, the night shift. As he was driving home, he got a flat tire. Now, he was on the edges of the Scape Ore Swamp. After fixing the tire, he saw the creature sort of come out of a group of trees and walk towards him. Not able to recognize it, he did the smart thing and jumped in the car. Now, what he says is, I ran in the car, and as I locked it, the thing grabbed the door handle. I could see him from the neck down, 3 big fingers, long black nails, and green rough skin. It was strong, and it seemed angry. I tromped on the gas, looked in the mirror, and I could see a blur of green motion. I could see his toes, and then the next thing, he leapt up on the roof of my car. I thought I heard a grunt and could see his claws through the front windshield where they curled around the roof. I sped up and swerved in an attempt to shake the creature off. Eventually, he tromped on his brakes. The creature went flying off the car and into the swamp, and he took off. Didn't wait around to see what happened next. Now, not a few months after this, an airman stationed at Shaw Air Force Base, which is in the area, reported on August 5th that he had encountered the lizard man on Highway 15, and he had shot and wounded it. He presented several scales and a small quantity of blood as evidence. Now, to be fair, because I have to be honest. 2 days later, he recanted his account and said that he had hoaxed the sighting in order to keep stories about the lizard man in circulation.
Wow.
All right.
Local businesses began selling lizard man t-shirts, and the local Chamber of Commerce began encouraging the media attention as good for the community. Now, in 2008, CNN mentioned that the lizard man...
CNN.
Yeah.
CNN.
Had attacked a couple in Bishopsville, South Carolina, who reported damage to their vehicle, including blood traces. The blood traces were subsequently found to be from a coyote or a wolf.
Well, okay. But we've already established and mentioned that we know that coyotes and wolves live in the swamp.
Well, coyotes. We don't know about wolves. I didn't find wolves. But if he says wolves live there, he lives there, I'm willing to take his word for it. In 2010, Josh Gates and Destination Truth went to the town and checked it out. And he had fun there, and he had interest. But at the end of it, he found a footprint. But he felt like there just wasn't enough evidence to support the idea of a lizard man being in the area.
Fair enough, I suppose.
Now, eventually a local radio station, WCOS, offered him $1 million reward for capture of the creature. Of course, that caused more reports of sightings, but none of those reports were really credible. The reports also brought tourists flocking into town. In 2008, Bob and Dixie Rawson reported strange damage to their car. Many locals are still strong believers in the lizard man, and the occasional reports still come in. In 2005, a woman in Newberry, South Carolina, reported 2 large creatures with green skin and glowing red eyes outside of her home.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And again, that brings up this red eye shine, and nothing in nature that we know of has red eye shine. And then, most recently, near a church in Bishopville, people saw and took pictures of what they claim to be the swamp monster.
Okay.
Okay, what you don't do is turn around, take a picture of the dang thing, and then walk away. Why don't people get that these days? It's like we're in movies. They're getting so... Okay, sorry. I'm getting a little insane here. I'm going to lower it down.
Now, as I said, and before we leave this, again, in 2010, when Destination Truth investigated this, he got the town together for a big meeting. They got a local band in. They played for everybody. And then they sort of had this town meeting. And it's like everybody there had a story about the swamp monster, but I couldn't find them. And Josh didn't detail them in the episode. He just mentioned it. And it makes a certain amount of sense because if you live there, you're going to see it more.
Right.
So there's that. But there are a lot of criticisms to offer.
Right.
And it's only fair that we cover a few of those. Ben Radford, who's an investigator, states that the details of Chris Davis's story do not hold up under scrutiny. Over weeks and months and repeated tellings, the details changed many times, from having scales to the creature being packed with mud, how far away Davis was from the creature when he first saw it, and whether or not it attacked the car.
Right.
Also, Radford questioned the details of how Davis was able to see details of the lizard man creature at 2 a.m. when there was no lighting nearby in a heavily wooded area when the moon was not bright. Also, if this is an aggressive creature, which it would need to be to attack a car like that, why hasn't it attacked anything else? Ben Radford seems like a kind of guy that's got the sort of questions I want to know the answer to.
I can't really disagree with you on that one.
Yeah, no. Me neither.
Also, if Davis first saw the creature in the shadows while he was closing the trunk of his car, how was he able to get back in his car, lock the doors, and start it before the creature got to him when it caught up to his car, according to him, when he was going 40 miles an hour?
Yeah, no, I don't understand that one either. It's kind of like, if you were gonna... No, I'm bad at this. No, let's not. Another curious issue is there's no photographs of the damage to Davis's car, which would provide some evidence that something happened. And newspaper accounts give various descriptions of the damage to the car. Again, the tellings changes from he escaped with no more than a scratch on his fender to scratches on the hood, scratches on the roof. That all.
Yeah.
So that's one criticism. Other criticisms, of course, we know one guy hoaxed the sightings, and just because one guy did does not mean that every sighting was hoaxed. However, you got Chris, and his story is hard to believe.
Right.
You got Ken, who lied about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't leave us a lot of sightings to work with. And again, even if there's only one creature, okay, that it was, let's say, is born of an ancient egg in 1972 or 1978, 2 years later, is big enough to hunt. Mm-hmm. So that's when we first start seeing it in the 1980s. And we go from there. But then why are we still seeing it in 2015? It would seem to be outside of something that big's life cycle, wouldn't it?
You would think, yes.
You would think, yeah.
So there's that. Also, that's the other thing, is that depending on who's seeing it, it depends on whether or not it has a tail. I would think that it would have a tail all the time. Alligators do. Crocodiles do.
Generally, yeah, and that's what I was saying. It's like, well, what does it just... That doesn't make any sense. Why does it only have a tail part of the time?
However...
That's why I was talking about the growing back tail thing, because you don't know if it's like an actual reptile where it will grow back.
However, the Bishopville Cotton Museum has sightings documented all the way back to Native American times. The museum keeps an exhibit of lizard man lore on display. And Jason Cox of the museum has said, how many things that we've taken as, oh, that's a story that can't be, has been proven to be true. So as I tell people, you have to believe that there could be a lizard man out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I am one of those people that in my heart of hearts, that is what I want to believe. I want to believe that there is magic and mystery left in the universe, and a lizard man would embody some of that.
Well, sure.
I can't tell if people are just crazy, or I can't tell if I'm crazy, but I think when people talk about the lizard man, they imagine Godzilla, and that's why Godzilla is a thing now.
Well, no, not necessarily.
I was going to say Godzilla's been a thing since roughly the 60s.
Well, fair enough. Yeah.
It's just, it goes through, it waxes and wanes in popularity. Sometimes it's really big, and sometimes it's not so big. And then it's really big again, and then not so big, and then really big. Like most things that are part of pop culture. Mm-hmm. As each new generation discovers them, there's sort of this rush to experience it.
Right.
So, also, movies have sort of changed. I mean, Marvel brought in the whole idea of a movie set in a universe. Mm-hmm. And so now people are like, wait, we have universes in movies. Universal tried to do it with their Universal Monsters. The Dark Universe is what they called it. That didn't quite pan out the way they hoped, though they may try again. And the whole resurgence of Godzilla is part of the Godzilla universe sort of coming into...
Right.
So, but that's just a modern thing with movies.
Yeah, and I was just trying to put out my opinion there. But, since you started talking about it, I'm starting to get it a little bit more.
So, that is the details. Now, I want to add something here before we get into our summary. Mm-hmm. And that is that the Creek, among other tribes, but the Creek believed that there was more than one world. And that it was possible to tumble from ours into another one.
Right.
That is not an uncommon belief for Native American peoples. Or Native South American peoples or whatever. That is, they are not the only ones. The idea of other worlds and being able to slide into them. I find that very believable because I can't tell you the number of times that I've been driving alone and just felt like in a backwoods area on the way to some gig somewhere, and I'm feeling like the woods are closing in, and every sound is amplified, and it feels like it's taking twice as long to get where I'm going, and I should be there already, but I'm not. I can definitely see the idea that there's maybe another world out there, and it's possible that people sort of tumble into it from time to time. Maybe the Native Americans were onto something. And in that situation, maybe that other world is where the swamp monster lives. And maybe that's how people encounter it.
Maybe.
That's a lot of maybes, but okay.
Well, okay. My reason for bringing this up is if they're right, and I don't think they're that wrong, but if they're right in their beliefs, it explains a lot. It would explain the missing 411.